Over the last several videos, we've been doing a lot of coding and we've eased back on the theory a bit. Before we continue, I want to delve into some of the thinking behind what we're actually doing. In the last few years, there's been an explosion in the variety of hardware devices. These days, you can buy desktops, laptops, tablets, smartphones, smartwatches, smart televisions, and everything in between. The spectrum of screen sizes has become saturated with only a few narrow gaps left. So, how can one person manage to create a website that's visible to everyone? Well, here's the good news. You've already been writing a lot of the code that will make this work. Right now, our website looks best on smaller screens, but without duplicating any code or creating a separate website, we can make some small modifications that will allow our site to work on tablets. With some similar modifications, our site will work on desktops as well. Our website is using a technique called responsive web design. More specifically, we've taken a mobile-first approach to responsive web design. That means that we've designed the mobile version of our site first, rather than designing a desktop version and trying to scale it down to mobile devices. That's because it's much easier to take a simple layout and make it more complex, rather than trying to reduce a complex layout to its simplest form. Responsive web design is an important concept to understand, so let's take a look at this in more detail. Here, we have the current version of our website with all of the work that we've completed so far. If I adjust the size of our web browser, you'll notice that the layout flexes and changes its size as the width of the browser increases and decreases. This is called a fluid layout. Currently, when the width of the page is thin, such as it is on a mobile device, our page looks pretty decent. However, when the page is very wide, as it is on a desktop or a tablet device, the page looks pretty stretched out. Now, here, I've loaded up the final version of our website that includes some additions that we'll make very soon. If I adjust the size of our web browser, you'll notice that not only does the page flex, it actually rearranges itself. Notice the navigation changing and the actual layout changing. That way, on a larger screen or on a smaller screen, we'll always present the optimal experience. This is done using a CSS rule that we haven't learned about yet, called media queries. This technique is called responsive web design, and it's been around since 2010. The name comes from the idea that the page layout will change or respond to the size of the screen that it's being displayed on. At this point, it's largely accepted as one of the best ways to create a website that works on many devices. Responsive web design is not a single technology. Rather, it is a small collection of 3 techniques that's under the one name, responsive web design. The first step to making our layout responsive is to create fluid images. This is easy, and in fact, we've already done it. If I scroll up to our images here in our CSS, you can see that the max width is set to 100%. The second step is to create a fluid grid. We haven't actually used a grid on this website, but our layout is still fluid. We've done this from the start by using percentages to define the width of our elements rather than pixels. Percentages are relative units that will change the width based on the relative width of their parent container. Because everything is a percentage all the way up and down our nested elements on the page, they will change based on the relative width of the browser. Like I said, this is different than using pixels, which are a fixed unit rather than a relative unit. Fixed units will not adjust based on the width of the browser. The third step is to use a special CSS rule called a media query. We haven't talked about media queries yet, but they will allow us to change the layout of our page elements based on the width of the page. In the next few videos, we'll add several media queries that will allow our layout to respond to different screen resolutions.